and be free. Oh, freedom, freedom, freedom.
Amazing. Welcome. I'm Deborah McDowell. I'm the director of the Carter Woodson Institute and professor of English, and I thank you immensely for your presence. Julian Bond gave a very popular lecture to alumni, to students, in groups all around the country called Crossing the Color Line, R&B and the Birth of Rock and Roll. And I'm going to read just a little snippet of it by way of introducing this musical extravaganza this evening. Bond writes, Jefferson once said, "Music is the passion of my soul. It is my passion too. And if it is not yours, your soul, indeed your life, is poorer for it. My passion, I ought to add, is entirely as part of popular music's vast audience. I can't read a note or carry a tune or dance a step. What I bring to this presentation," he's introducing his own talk, "is a lifetime of listening, humming, whistling, attempts at singing, rocking, rolling, swaying, and clapping. I sat on Paul Robeson's knee as he sang The Four Insurgent Generals. I watched Bandstand before Dick Clark took it over. I watched Mrs. Morris from Detroit lead her young son, Stevelin, later known as Little Stevie Wonder, onto the stage of the Royal Peacock on Atlanta's Auburn Avenue. I heard Ray Charles drown in his own tears in Atlanta's Herndon Stadium, and I wrote a poem about it that appears as liner notes on a Ray Charles album. I've seen entertainers walk the tables at the Magnolia Ballroom, and I've done the slow drag at blue light parties. I saw Hank Ballard sing Work With Me, Annie, and I saw him dance and sing The Twist before a young boy in Philadelphia changed his name from Ernest Evans to Chubby Checker. I am qualified. By the time Julian began giving this immensely popular lecture in the 1990s, he had been arguing that the interplay of the musics of Black and white Americans for music's capacity, demonstrated music's capacity to shape, influence, alter, and ultimately create a more just and a more democratic society. He had been extolling this message regarding the political power of song for decades. We have modeled this evening's program on a variety show Julian had a strong role in directing in May of 1960. On the evening of May 17th, the Committee on Appeal for Human Rights sponsored a fundraising event for the Atlanta Student Defense Fund, students who had been jailed for sit-ins. That event was called the Sit-In Showdown. The Sit-In Showdown, co-scripted by Spelman student Rosalind Pope and Julian Bond, then at Morehouse. The audience was treated to an evening of music, poetry, and dramatic presentations, and even a mock striptease act. We won't do a mock striptease act this evening. Julian directed a verse choir reading of the Sit-In Walking Blues. Interspersed throughout this evening's program and that evening's program were other solos, duets, trios, quartets, and ensembles that offered musical numbers including Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Love is a Many Splendored Thing, Some Enchanted Evening, and We Shall Overcome. Consider this evening's program, then, an imaginary recreation of the sit-in showdown, our amateur hour with professionals in for good measure. We invite you to listen, hum, whistle, rock, roll, sway, clap, even stomp if the music so moves you, and say amen if Julian's words inspire you. Everything you will hear this evening, except for my very minor introductions in between, has been written and or spoken by Julian Bond himself. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Have you seen this?
Yes. Yes, I have. I think it's great. What do you think about it?
Don't you think it ought to happen here?
Oh, I'm sure it will. Surely someone will do it.
Yeah?
We,
The students of the 6 affiliated institutions of the Atlanta University Center,
Clark,
Morrison Brown,
Spelman,
Atlanta University,
and the Interdenominational Theological Center
have joined our hearts, minds, and bodies in the cause of human rights.
The time was 1960, the place the USA. That February 1st became a history-making day. From Greensboro across the land, the news spread far and wide as quietly and bravely youth took a giant stride.
Heed the call, Americans all, side by equal side. Sisters, sit in dignity. Brothers, sit in pride. From Mobile, Alabama to Nashville, Tennessee. From Denver, Colorado to Washington, D.C. There rose a cry for freedom, for human liberty.
The time has come to prove our faith in all man's dignity. We serve the cause of justice of all humanity.
we're soldiers in the army with Martin Luther King. Peace and love are weapons. Nonviolence is our creed.
Heed the call, Americans all, side by equal side. Sisters, sit in dignity. Brothers, sit in pride. This is a land we cherish, a land of liberty. How can Americans deny all men equality?
Our Constitution says we can't. And Christians, you should know. Jesus died that morning so all mankind could know.
Heed the call, Americans all, side by equal side. Sisters, sit in dignity. Brothers, sit in pride.
No mobs of violence and hate shall turn us from our goal. No Jim Crow laws nor police state shall stop my freebound soul. 3,000 students bound in jail shall lift their heads and sing.
We'll travel on to freedom like songbirds on the wing.
Heed the call, Americans all, side by equal side. Brothers, sit in dignity. Sisters, sit in pride, in pride, in pride. original freedom. Cause it ain't no home to keep your mind. Stand on freedom. Stand on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah,
Canvassing backroads of the South, trying to draw out the frightened electorate from their tar paper shacks by their own asthmatic examples of determined bravery.
Battering the conscience of the nation, trying to taunt it into enforcing the tenets of its own laws.
No longer seemed enough. The movement, for all its drama of confrontation and encounter, had been merely an effort to come from minus something on the scale of democracy up to parity. A starting point.
I'm gonna sit at the welcome table. I'm gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. Hallelujah. I'm gonna sit at the welcome table. I'm gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. One of these days. I'm gonna sit at how you treat me. Oh, I'm gonna tell God how you treat me one of these days. Hallelujah. I'm gonna tell God how you treat me. I'm gonna tell God how you treat me one of these days. One of these days that I'm gonna be your record voter. I'm gonna be your registered voter one of these days. Hallelujah. I'm gonna be your registered voter. I'm gonna be a registered voter one of these days. That I'm gonna sit at the welcome table. That I'm gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. Hallelujah. I'm gonna sit at the welcome table. I'm gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days.
The movement for expanded democracy pressed on, and by the middle 1960s could claim a large measure of success. Despite the steady forward march of progress, the forces of reaction have remained ever strong, ever able to devise new ways to force freedom into retreat.
Although the world we see today as the 21st century unfolds is very different from the world as it existed when the 20th century began 100 years ago, in many ways, these worlds remain the same.
Then, racist-sponsored laws requiring segregation in all places. Now, their ideological descendants sponsor laws mandating the end of fairness in all public places.
Then as now, racial scapegoating served as a substitute for real solutions to complex problems, reminding us that while so much changes, so much remains the same.
Will the circle be unbroken? And by, Lord, by and by, there's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a brighter devil waiting in the sky,
Black Americans didn't just march into freedom. We worked our way into civil rights through the difficult business of organizing, knocking on doors one by one, building communities block by block, financing the cause dollar by dollar, registering voters one by one, and creating coalitions one step at a time.
A civil rights agenda for a new century must include continuing to litigate, to organize, to mobilize, forming coalitions of the caring and concerned, joining ranks against the comfortable, the callous, and the smug.
Civil rights are positive legal prerogatives, the right to equal treatment before the law. These are rights shared by everyone. There's no one in the United States who does not or should not share in enjoying these rights.
Yes.
When I'm asked if gay rights are civil rights, my answer is always, of course they are. Gay and lesbian rights are not special rights in any way. It isn't special to be free from discrimination. It is an ordinary entitlement of citizenship.
Everybody has rights. I don't care who you are, what you do, where you come from, how you were born, what your race or creed or color is. You have rights. Everybody's got rights.
We know that for the most part, elections in this country, in the North as well as the South, are not free.
We were promised compassionate conservatism. Instead, we got crony capitalism.
The movement, it turned out, wasn't about a hamburger. Not just about segregation, nor just about voting, but about a whole system. Yours in struggle.
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 And the Mississippi River.
Lord, 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 Lord.
And the Mississippi River.
Lord, 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 Lord.
And the Mississippi River. Where you can count them one by one. It could be your son. Count them two by two. It could be me or you. Count them three by three. Now do you wanna see? Count them four by four. Oh well, into the river they go. Oh well, into the river they go. Well, you can count them five by five, and they don't come out alive like good money. You count them six by six like Swern on Mississippi. They got it fixed. And you can count them seven by seven. And Mississippi ain't sure ain't heaven. And you can count them eight by eight. And they were thrown in because of hate. And you can count them nine by nine. In Mississippi there's ain't no crime. And you can count them 10 by 10. And you will wonder when the right will win. And you will wonder when the right will win. In the Mississippi River.
Lord, 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 Lord.
In the Mississippi River.
Lord, 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 Lord.
And the Mississippi River. Well, we gotta stop them from going in the river. Gonna stop them from going in the river, gotta stop them. With their heads cut off, their feet tied, holes throughout their body. From going in the river, gotta stop them.
The FBI and the CIA kept files on me in the 1960s.
While they were watching and following and photographing and wiretapping those of us working nonviolently in the freedom movement.
A wave of white terrorism was sweeping across the South unchallenged.
It has taken 40 years and more to bring a pitiful few of these terrorists to justice.
As Nina Simone famously said, the name of this tune is Mississippi Goddam. And I mean every word of it. And I want you all to help me, and you know the parts that you're supposed to help me on. Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee made me lose my rest. And everybody knows about Mississippi Goddam. Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee made me lose my rest. And everybody knows about Mississippi Goddam. Can't you see it? Can't you feel it? It's all in the air. I can't stand the pressure much longer. Somebody say a prayer. Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee made me lose my rest. And everybody knows about Mississippi Goddam. Bet you thought I was kidding, didn't you? Hound dogs on my trail, school children sitting in jail, black cats cross my path. I think every day's gonna be my last. Lord have mercy on this land of mine. We all gonna get it in due time. I don't belong here, I don't belong there. I even stopped believing in prayer. Don't tell me, I'll tell you. Me and my people just about through. I've been there, so I know. Keep on saying go slow. But that's just the trouble. Washing the windows, picking the cotton. It's just plain rotten. Too damn lazy, thinking crazy. Where am I going? What am I doing? I don't know, I don't know. Just try to do your very best. Stand up, be counted with all the rest. And everybody knows about Mississippi Goddam. As Miss Simone famously said, this is a show tune, but the show still hasn't been written for it yet. Hound dogs on my trail, school children sitting in jail, black cats cross my path. I think every day's gonna be my last. Lord have mercy on this land of mine. We all gonna get it in due time. I don't belong here, I don't belong there. I even stopped believing in prayer. Don't tell me, I'll tell you. Me and my people just about through. I've been there, so I know. Keep on saying go slow. But that's just the trouble. Washing the windows, picking the cotton. It's just plain rotten. Too damn lazy, thinking crazy. Where am I going? What am I doing? I don't know, I don't know. Just try to do your very best. Stand up, be counted with all the rest. 'Cause everybody knows about Mississippi, goddamn. I like Nina Simone sometimes. I think I sang the same version twice. Picket lines, school boycotts. They try to say it's a communist plot. All I want is equality for my sisters, my brothers, my people, and me. Yes, you lied to me all these years. You told me to wash and clean my ears and talk real fine just like a lady. And you'd stop calling me Sister Sadie. This whole country is full of lies. You're all gonna die and die like flies. I don't trust you anymore. Keep on saying go slow. But that's just the trouble. Go slow. Desegregation. Go slow. Mass participation. Go slow. Reunification. Go slow. When things work gradually, it brings more tragedy. Why can't you see it? Why can't you feel it? I don't know, I don't know. You don't have to live next to me, just give me my equality. Everybody knows about Mississippi. Everybody knows about Alabama. Everybody knows about Mississippi. God damn.
I forgot my lines. Oh my, that was amazing. Yes. We've been hearing all afternoon about Julian's passion for music, jazz, folk, freedom songs, the popular music of his youth, a passion sparked during his high school years, perhaps long before that because he was bounced on Paul Robeson's knee as a 4-year-old. I mean, how many people, just to interrupt myself, how many people do you think have the memory of a world-famous singer bouncing them on his knees as a 4-year-old? But that was Julian's experience. We couldn't seem to locate that wonderful photograph of Julian as a 4-year-old, literally seated on the knee of Paul Robeson. He was a devotee of American Bandstand. And in the midst of it all, he was a poet. I know we throw around the term Renaissance man, Renaissance this, Renaissance that, but we have cliches and kind of overused concepts for a reason. And sometimes we need to drag them out, although we're frequently told to avoid cliches at all costs. Julian truly was a Renaissance man. There was almost nothing this man didn't do. Well, I'm sure there were things, but in organizing the symposium, I'm constantly learning new things about Julian, and I'm thinking, Julian, I hardly knew you. You introduced a bill into the Georgia legislature about sickle cell anemia. I didn't know about that. So Julian, in the midst of all of his organizing, all of his agitation, tireless agitation, is a person who wrote poetry. He wrote poetry from his earliest teenage years, and in this section of the program, we're going to feature some of this poetry. What comes through in the poetry and in the music he loved and often wrote about was Julian's sly and corny and sometimes bawdy side. Now I want to say here, what some might call bawdy was kind of corny bawdy. If Julian told me, I don't know, I've lost count of the many times he would say, "How did one become a Raylette?" And each time I would pretend that he hadn't already told me this 100 times. And so the answer is, let Ray. So, you know, that was as bawdy as it got, right? But that is Julian's sense of the bawdy. The first poem we're going to hear is I Too Hear America Singing. It was published in the first issue of the Student Voice SNCC's newsletter in the summer of 1960.
I too hear America singing. I too hear America singing, but from where I stand, I can only hear Little Richard and Fats Domino. But sometimes I hear Ray Charles drowning in his own tears, or Bird relaxing at Camarillo, or Horace Silver doodling. Then I don't mind standing a little longer.
King. See that woman shake that thing. We can't all be Martin Luther King. See that woman shake that thing. We can't all be Martin Luther King.
Well, all right.
All right.
Well, all right.
All right.
Oh, my soul. Tutti frutti. Oh, good golly, Miss Molly.
Look at that.
Early night, come Miss Molly rocking at the house of blue light. Good God, and Miss Molly, don't let the ball. You're rocking at a roll. I can't get no more love.
I'm feeling it now. I know you feeling it. Woo, baby.
I'm tired.
Get some water.
Our students are amazing. They are amazing. The jazz band, everybody, you are just outdoing yourselves. Okay. According to Julian, this next poem was based on conversations he had during his first trip to Cuba as a 19-year-old college student at Morehouse, soon after the Cuban Revolution. Notice that in this poem, Julian segues from realpolitik to a personal, sensual, intimate experience.
Soldiers fuzzed the city in khaki confusion, pin-cushioned with weapons. Seedy orange vendors squeeze among the pulpy masses. Camera-pregnant tourists click down the Prado. Loteria salesmen tear along the dotted line. Guitars pluck loafers into corner bars. Uniformed schoolgirls genuflect languorously, punctuating romantic, roaming rainbow dresses cling slowly, punctuating neon orgasms into the mambo night. And above Fidel's sandpaper voice, you want a girl, maybe?
All right.
Now with us tonight is the oldest a cappella group at UVA, the Virginia Gentlemen, founded in 1953.
Oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered for your touch lonely time. As time goes by so slowly, and time can do so much. Are you side. Wait for me, wait for me. I'll be coming home to you. And oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered for your touch. Lonely times. As time goes by so slowly, and time can do so much. Are you still mine? Are you your love I need? Your love, Godspeed, your love to me.
Now, as Julian would say, those were the days when good music was popular and popular music was good. This is one of Julian's favorite aphorisms, which he worked into any number of his speeches. While we celebrate him for his skills as a social organizer, a politician, a political activist, a public intellectual, a teacher, it is perhaps less well known that his skills as a writer showed themselves, among other ways, in the collection of aphorisms that have since have made their way onto poster boards and books of quotations. Here are just a few choice lines.
Those were the days when we had a war on poverty, not a war on the poor.
Those were the days when women and men of all races and creeds worked together in the cause of civil rights.
Those were the days when the president picked the Supreme Court and not the other way around.
Those were the days when patriotism was a reason for open-eyed disobedience, not an excuse for blind allegiance.
Those were the days when the news media really was fair and balanced, and not just stenographers for the powerful. Those were not the good old days.
Got that right. very wrong. But we believe that if we could only integrate lunch counters, then we'd never have any problems at all.
Well, we found out two things. The food wasn't that good, and even though eating at integrated lunch counters is nice, it is not the nicest thing in the world. It's very important, but it's not the most important thing.
And then those buses. If only we could sit in front of the bus, there would be no more problems.
Finally, the federal government decided it would enforce its own laws. And then we found that sitting in the front of the buses was nice, but it was not the most important thing in the world.
Then the right to register and vote. Now we're starting to vote in larger and larger numbers, and we're starting to discover something that sounds too terrible to be true. We're discovering that the right to vote by itself is not the most important thing in the world.
The mere right to vote is meaningless if we don't also have the right to participate in politics.
It's one thing to get free.
It's another thing to stay free.
Yours in struggle.
They say that freedom is a constant struggle.
Every normal human being wants to walk the earth with dignity and abhors any and all prescriptions placed upon him because of race or color.
Another man done go. Another man done gone. Another man done gone. Oh, another man done gone. Another man done gone. Another man done gone. Another man done gone. Oh, another man done gone. Another man done gone. Another man done gone. Another man done gone. Oh, another man done gone. He didn't have to die. He didn't have to die. He didn't have to die. Oh Lord, another man done gone. They shot him in the streets. They shot him dead in the streets. They shot him in the streets. Oh, another man done gone. They didn't know his name. They didn't know his name. You gotta have a
It is violent simply to be black in America today.
Unless we think of civil rights in the totality, we're not thinking about it in the right way. It's a nonsensical argument, Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. Nobody who says Black Lives Matter is saying white lives don't matter. That's an opposition that doesn't exist. It's really silly to talk about things in these ways.
The election this fall is a contest between two widely disparate views of who we are and what we believe. One view wants to march us backwards through history.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who will write these future chapters, what names you would think of, what people you would say, this person, that person, the other person do it, but there will be people writing. There will be people making plans. There will be people moving forward to make this a better country. There's so many undone things in this country. One of them is that our schools, which were supposedly integrated by the Supreme Court decision of 1954, are now almost as segregated today as they were then. So somebody's got to do it, and somebody will do it. Luckily, every time we've needed somebody or somebodies to rise up and say, let's do this, that person and persons have stepped forward, and they'll step forward again. I know they will. I'm positive they will. I'm convinced they will.
Yes, someone has always come. Some ones have always come. And never have we needed, never have we wanted someone's more urgently than now. What do we want?
What do we want?
We want guarantees of justice.
We want protection from an epidemic of gun violence.
We want to get guns off the streets.
We want a budget that provides for all.
We want public schools that educate every child.
We believe the Confederate flag belongs in museums.
We want justice and fairness for all.
As the brush fire spreads in two parts. One, the civil rights movement did not begin in Montgomery, and it didn't end in the 1960s. It continues to this very minute. Julian Bond. I woke again to the smell of smoke. I woke again, and it was cloudy outside. The entire neighborhood blighted outside of my window. This, now, is our world. I'm sorry, would you mind if I started again? As the brush fire speaks in two parts. One, the civil rights movement did not begin in Montgomery, and it didn't end in the 1960s. It continues to this very minute. Julian Bond. One, I woke again to the smell of smoke.
It's okay.
Take your time and think about it. Do it good. You can do it. You can do it. Do it, yeah.
It's okay.
I woke again to the smell of smoke. It is a brush fire with muscle, a thing that carries its heat above its head, atop its shoulders. 1,000 ghosts, all our ancestors settling into the flame, preparing with us to continue this fight. Harriet's strong arms and Nat's strong faith, Ella's brilliant intellect and Julian's lasting legacy, from the Combahee River Collective to the Black Youth Project, from SNCC to the Dream Defenders. Oh, the fire, oh, the fire, oh, the flame. 2. They say if you don't name the war, that means it doesn't happen, right? What are we gonna call this one? Aziza Barnes. Let's call this one When the Chickens Finally Come Home to Roost. All black, feathered, and glistening, laying tar baby eggs on the farmer's doorstep. Let's call this one a great raising of fists across the pavement, or a great bursting of wings across the field, or how hundreds of black anythings breaking free is someone's worst nightmare. Let's call this one an arson that turned into a brush fire because, surprise, the entire field was made of the exact same thing. Let's call this one When the Wind Blows Just Right, or how us breathing together is how we keep the flame spreading, or how your voice, my voice, is what we must do to keep this flame lit. Let's call this one The Fire Next Time, or when I speak of fire, I mean more a grief that eats and eats as it moves, an anger that builds itself up out of the body and plants its hands on anything that takes up space. Let's call this one an arson of 1,000 ancestors in full coffins, the bright fingers of our grief peeling in anger. Let's call this one a single night when a black boy's death brought the sun to thrash against an empty gas station instead of the whole bloody land. Let's call this one And the People Could Fly, as the folk story goes. And after the fields, they flew through the water hoses and up over the ghettos and up over the cop cars and through the tear gas. I swear I saw them, their black bodies cutting through the fog. I swear my eyes blinding and burning, but there they were, above the clouds, dodging the helicopter flood lamps, watching us, just watching us. Let's call this one All the Potter's Fields Got Plowed, and Here Comes the Cavalry, or Ghost Revival Been a Long Time Coming, or Keep Your Eye on the Shoreline, Watch the Atlantic Grinning with all its teeth, Open its mouth, say, Finally, Here Comes Legion.
For as long as we've existed, whether Democrats or Republicans have occupied the White House, we've spoken truth to power.
A great deal of the solution to our current problems lies within our common hands.
The movement produced leaders of its own, but relied not on the noted, but the nameless.
Not on the famous, but the faceless.
It didn't wait for commands from afar.
It saw wrong and acted against it.
It saw injustice and brought it down.
It is our job to keep upright what others would weaken and destroy.
America is strongest when she is just.
She is fiercest when her people are free.
None of it is easy, but we have never wished our way to freedom. Instead, we've always worked our way. Today, we have much more to work with, and we take heart that so much has changed. The changes that have come have everything to do with the work of the modern movement for civil rights.
talking, keep on talking, marching up. Thank you.